Okay, well, thanks for having me here. I'm delighted to be a part of the event. It's really exciting to be here. I'd love to be there in person, but virtual is good too. I have some slides for you. We'll get right into it. I'm going to be talking about dabbling with Deno, tales from a web developer playing with a new toy, which sounds like it could be a bunch of different things. It could waffle all over the place, but we'll see how we get on. Before we do, let's do a small introduction. My name's Phil Hawksworth. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm head of developer relations at Deno. Now, there is going to be a chance for a bit of Q&A at the end of this, but if you're watching this after the fact, or if questions come to you later, that's just fine too. You can find me on the internet. You can ask me questions in lots of places on social media. I'm usually at Phil Hawksworth. At least that certainly was my name when I was on Twitter. I'm not on there so much these days. I guess where am I? I'm on LinkedIn as Phil Hawksworth. I'm on GitHub as Phil Hawksworth. More often now, I'm philhawksworth.dev on Blue Sky. And even my domain has changed to philhawksworth.dev, so you can find me on the web there. That didn't used to be the case. I used to be on this very natty domain name, hawksworks.com. Naming things are hard. That's a terrible name. It's not quite my name. It's almost my name. It's difficult to say. It's difficult to spell. So I'm not that anymore. But naming things is hard. We don't all have it as easy as, I don't know, people like Ryan Dahl, the inventor of Node. You know, he came up with a very smart name when he named Node. At the point that he decided to go for a difficult second album and have another go at building a JavaScript runtime and work on Deno, he had to come up with a new name. So he took Node and he split it and he sorted it and he joined it, and Deno was born. That's the name. That's not how the runtime was built. We'll get into that perhaps a little bit later. But yeah, this process of splitting an array and sorting it and joining it might have worked for Ryan for Node, but less so for me trying to come up with a new name for Hawksworks. That didn't work out so well. So Phil Hawksworth at Dev it is. That's me. You can find me there around the web. And I've been building for the web for a long time. I've been building for the web for about 25 years in different places, in software houses, putting numbers on screens for traders to trade off, in large enterprises, in agencies, in tech startups. Most recently, I was working at Netlify, but now I'm working at Deno. And across all of those places, I've observed a few things. And one of those things is that, we're, as web developers, we're inclined to indulge in a few trends over the years. Things come and go. Some technologies come and go. Some technologies stick around. Some become ubiquitous. And when I'm thinking about the world I like to build in, I love building with JavaScript, and JavaScript certainly has become ubiquitous. Partly, I guess, because it became the runtime for the web, as an old colleague of mine used to describe it. Present as it is in all web browsers. But increasingly, its footprint has increased, and that is, of course, due to tools like Node.js, where that introduced JavaScript to the back end. And more recently, it is at the edges. It is around the network. It's running in serverless environments all over the place. So really, JavaScript is pretty ubiquitous, not just for where it runs, but also for the kind of companies that run it. Certainly, it's gone from the front end, from the browser to the server and beyond. And Node is one of these tools that I've observed it grow over the years from a curiosity to a ubiquity. It really is everywhere, and it's really mainstream now. But that wasn't always the case. And I've had to battle long and hard over the years to convince companies to adopt it, whereas they may have been of a more traditional stance. That has changed over the years, partly because of how Node has brought JavaScript into the mainstream more and more, and its resilience has increased. And I think that is continuing to increase as we move into the world of TypeScript, or JavaScript plus, as I shouldn't call it, because naming is hard and that's not what it's called. But this natural evolution of JavaScript, really taking it to become much more resilient and robust, is really exciting. And this is an example of the pool of new interesting tools. I think as developers, we love trying new things. We love experimenting with what seems exciting or what seems like it opens up new doors for us. But I personally am very cautious about that. I'm very cautious about adopting new tools. I need some persuading. And in fact, I kind of tried Deno for the first time very much by accident. I don't think I realized I was even using it. And that might be the case for you as well. You know, as a JavaScript, a web developer, a node developer, however you kind of describe yourself, you may already have encountered Deno without realizing it. The place I discovered Deno for the first time without realizing it was when I was building edge functions on Netlify. So I had lots of sites. I still have lots of sites on Netlify, and I was using Netlify edge functions as a way of adding some dynamism and some real-time or at-request time capabilities to my otherwise pre-rendered sites. And little did I realize at the time, but actually that was powered and still is powered by Deno under the hood. But this is what it looks like. It looks like JavaScript to me. I was writing functions, like handlers that look a little bit like this. Some of them a bit more complicated than this, but you get the point. This is just JavaScript. Indeed, much of it is now just TypeScript. And that's a really interesting way to start building with something without even realizing that that's what's powering it under the hood. So this was my first taste of Deno, and I became increasingly excited about it before I came along to join Deno, the company. The next step for that, really, for me was, another kind of gateway drug that took me a bit deeper. And that came in the form of a site generator, one called Loom, which you may or may not have encountered. I love Loom. It's very, very elegantly designed from a technical standpoint. It's kind of aligns with some of my technical tastes. It's one of those projects that I don't know if you've ever been in this situation where you take a look at it and you end up reading the docs from start to finish all in one go. Got very excited about using this, but the first step of installing it was this command. It was a Deno command. I'd never used Deno before, or so I thought, certainly not explicitly. So this is what led me to Deno. It led me off to the Deno site where I found how to install that running this command. All of these commands and all of the content of this, by the way, will be shared later on. So don't be worried about your pen and paper or scribbling these things down. I'll share that later on. But running this command, of course, then gets us to the point that we've got Deno installed and we can start using it explicitly. And we've got this kind of scary blinking cursor of what do we do next. I haven't really talked about what is Deno. I've mentioned at the very beginning that I was excited to play with it as a new toy, but what exactly is it? Let's just talk just briefly about what it is. I mean, it's an open source JavaScript, TypeScript, and WebAssembly runtime. We talk about it having secure defaults. It's built on V8, Rust, and Tokyo. And Deno, the company, has a hosting platform. I'm not going to talk about that at all today. Really, it's a JavaScript runtime. It's a TypeScript toolchain, if you like. It's a package manager. It's a task runner. It's a testing tool. It's a linter and formatter. It's a benchmarking tool. It's a compiler. It's a lot of stuff. And we've got, quite a lot less than 20 minutes to talk about this. So I'm going to have to go fast and give you a little taster. But hopefully what I'll do is maybe I'll pick on some of these things and intrigue you in the same way that I was intrigued. What got me intrigued in the first place? Well, I'm a web developer of many years, as I mentioned earlier on, and it really struck me at the very beginning of looking at Deno that it was an API designed that's based very heavily on web standards, which is exciting. If you've been working in the web for a long time, it's nice to have something which is an API that's familiar to you. Deno is based on web standards, and its APIs feel kind of familiar, whether that's when you're dealing with URLs, or if you're building things with WebSockets, or newer APIs like Temporal that help you handle dates and times a little bit more easily. Things like that really help give a tool like Deno a quite shallow on-ramp. The combination of a familiar API and the ability to start things with a single file. You don't need lots of pipelines or infrastructure or configuration. Just a single file will get you rolling. Means that it's very low friction to get started. And I love that. So a familiar entry point for many people, familiar with Node, will be this. This is how you would run a JavaScript file with Node, just with that Node command. It's the same in Deno. After you've installed Deno, you can do the same thing. You can do the same with TypeScript. You don't need anything else. It's a batteries included, as the folks at Deno like to say, runtime. So you can be running TypeScript straight away, just like this. And there are some other familiar traits as well. You'll be familiar with doing things like npm init to get started, and that's just the same with Deno. Deno can give you a bootstrapped project from Deno.init as well, and this is what that kind of looks like. Let's get started with a little project here from fresh. All that does when you run Deno.init is it creates you a few little assets. It creates you a configuration file, a very simple script file, and a test file, so that you can get running your application, testing your applications, and then configuring them very, very quickly. As I mentioned earlier, indeed, you only need a single file to get started, but this gives you a little bit more. And you'll see here that, as I started off, I had a few squigglies. What are some of these internals that were built in and not performing or not being recognized by my IDE? Well, enabling Deno in your IDE after installing an extension means that you can have all kinds of insights into your code. It gives you hinting across the Deno ecosystem, and that's all available to you as well. So I would urge, if you're going to play with Deno, to install the Deno extension for Visual Code. There are also lots of other LSP tools for you for your particular code editor, and again, I'll share links to that at the end of the talk. And so, if you do get started with Deno, you don't necessarily need to run an npm install or something equivalent to start building with packages. This is something that appealed to me very much. So if we look at a very simple kind of TypeScript file here that maybe we want to import from some package, it's really important, I think, that we can start bringing things in from the npm or the Node ecosystem to just kind of ease that transition. It's difficult to start completely from scratch with an environment like this. So if you wanted to be importing from a package such as a Node emoji here, you could do that just by running your file after making sure that you've got this specifier at the beginning of your package, which is npm : and then the package name. That will tell Deno, when you run this script for the first time, to go off, install that, cache that for you, and then make it available to your script. So you don't need to run npm install. There's no package JSON required. There's no node modules for you to manage. Everything can happen in this single file. So you can just run your script. It'll install things, and off you go. But of course, dependency management is important, and not everything is as simple as that last script. So with Deno, we can implicitly import things in line, as I just shown, or we can run things like Deno add, Deno install to get your packages managed that way as well. When we install dependencies in Deno, those are cached globally, locally. What I mean by that is they're cached on your machine, but they're global across your machine for all of your projects. So the more you're building with Deno, the more you're building up that cache of kind of shared node modules, if you like, or resources that all of your projects can use. It's very similar to the approach that you may have seen from PNPM. This is great for kind of speed of installation, also kind of deduping things in your storage. It's much more efficient than perhaps the way you may be used to. And we can add things to our applications using Deno install commands, just as you could with npm install, or Deno add, which rather than installing it, just adds it to your configuration, so you can install it with one command later on. And either way, these look very, very much the same in terms of their syntax, where you can add many different packages. And if you include the specifier npm, it'll install them from the npm registry. There are alternatives. I don't think I'm going to get the chance to talk about JSR, which is another registry that Deno's championing with a few other large players as an interesting alternative to npm. But either way, you can install from JSR or npm with this kind of command. Now, you're probably much more comfortable with seeing a package.json where you've got the dependencies listed, so you can see exactly what's in there, and you can have that provision as well with Deno. Deno.json has an imports map. This is what the imports object looks like there as an example. And here you can see examples of resources that are being pulled in from the npm registry or from JSR. all that can be then used within your application. And if you do this, of course, that kind of simplifies things because those become exposed to your applications by those names rather than by the rather more verbose identifiers there. So rather than doing this in our example before, we can go back to doing this if we've got a Deno.json with our import map. One of the things that kind of excited me about using Deno was how it helped me manage all of these resources and keep these packages up to date. Deno has this useful utility called outdated built into its package manager. And the way that works is like this. Let's take a little look here. So we've got a simple project that's got a few different dependencies that it imports. It's got React in there, which is coming from NPM of a particular version number. We've also got Vite, which has to be at least, what do we say, 4.5.0 there. And we've got something coming in from JSR, which is from a standard library that we're using. So if we run Deno outdated there, it'll show us what's installed currently, what an update would give us if we were to just honor kind of make sure it's Semver safe, and what the very latest option is available to us. And so we can update in a number of ways. So if we run outdated update, my typing catches up with me, just run update there. It'll tell us that there's actually nothing that we can safely update yet because everything because we're a little bit further behind, so we're as far up to date as we can be for the latest update without breaking Semver. But if we go to the very latest, and I'll put the interactive flag on here, this will show us by package exactly what we can install, so we can cherry pick those. So the JSR package, that's just a point release, so we'll upgrade that, and we'll choose one of the others to upgrade as well. And there you can see we just kind of cherry picked which items to update, and that's been updated again, not just in our local cache, but also in our Deno.json to kind of make sure that that's all updated and consistent for when we use that in the future with perhaps a Deno install command in another environment. Okay, as I mentioned, those dependencies are all kind of cached globally in our local environment, which is a boon for anyone who's like me, who's been, had the headache of Googling for how do I delete all of my Node modules across all of my machine, because I've been in this situation where my disk was full and I had a gazillion gigabytes of Node modules. I don't know, has anyone been down this road where you've been finding these commands to kind of clean things out? It's much easier with Deno. You can just run Deno clean. That will purge your local cache, and then subsequent installs will gradually repopulate that cache to be used across your different projects. There is some further nuance coming to this command in future. I think I'm allowed to say. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. But just between us, I think that will be getting a little bit more laser focused in future, that have some extra kind of granular control. But for the moment, Deno clean will kind of purge that cache and let you populate it again piece by piece as you go. This is a little example here of actually the project that is the Deno docs site. I'm just going to start completely from fresh here just to show you a couple of things. So this is a brand new kind of clean checkout of that repo. We'll just take a little look at what that project looked like. It's a fairly extensive project with tens of thousands of pages, lots of content, quite a few dependencies. Dependencies there and different tasks that we can run. We'll talk about tasks shortly. And if after just cloning that, I simply run serve, which is one of the tasks there to bootstrap the project, you'll notice that it's not installing anything. That's because, even though that was a clean checkout, in my other projects, I happen to have installed things that include those dependencies. Had there been any gaps, it would have just installed those, and then we'd have been off and running. But as you can see, we're going very, very quickly there from kind of cloning a project to getting running. I just want to show you what cleaning looks like. So if I stop the server and then we'll run Deno, let's have a look at the info first of all. So you can see here from running Deno info, the location of where our various caches and resources are stored locally. So we can interrogate those if we wish. But I'm just going to clean that down, purge that entirely. It's removed that cache. So now if I run Deno, to run my task, let's use task rather than run this time. They're kind of interchangeable for tasks. Run task serve. You'll notice I haven't installed anything yet. Deno will install those for me automatically. It'll figure out the dependencies as according to the Deno.json. It'll install those in the cache for future use, not just in this project but the other projects as well. And we're off and running once again. Okay, time is moving on. Let's keep rolling as fast as we can. A task runner. Oh, this is really exciting to me. Who knew that running tasks would be a cause of excitement? You may be used to running different scripts in your Node projects with npm run dev. You can do likewise in Deno with tasks with the command run, or indeed with task. These tasks are managed in your Deno.json. And if we just show a little example here, kind of quickly, of just Deno task without naming a task, what it'll do, it'll describe to us what all the available tasks are, and it gives a description of what they are, if there are any other dependencies that it depends on, and we can see here that this task has a command that it'll run, and it's dependent on styles and so forth. This is all configured in what I think is a fairly familiar looking object within Deno.json, very similar to the scripts in package.json. But you can see that we can provide a description and the dependencies within this construct, meaning that Deno will resolve the dependencies for us across our project. And it can do some kind of handy things like doing diamond dependencies, deep cascading dependencies, and what have you. So for instance, if I run Deno task build, that is a command that runs build docs and build blog, but they both depend on build styles. And Deno is smart enough just to run build styles once as a dependency of both of those other subtasks before those other tasks are run. This is the kind of thing that I used to install other tools and applications to help me with before using Deno. And I love the fact that it's built in now and everyone can kind of conform to using one particular set of tools. Okay, I'm going to go quickly through test running. Deno includes a test framework, and you can run your tests using the command deno.test. Deno test. Just at the very beginning of this of our little demos, we looked at starting a simple project, and that gave us a Deno test file straight away. You can run that there with Deno test and see what that looks like. And this is a great kind of starting point to build out your tests across your application as you build it. Deno will look for files with these naming conventions, so anything _test or anything .test, and look for the tests within those files, and you can structure those however you like, and you get access to things like mocking, asynchronous testing, coverage tools, and a variety of different test styles. I don't really have the time to talk about that too much here, but I would recommend checking out some of the examples on docs.deno.com/examples, where we talk about testing fundamentals and isolating things with mocks and much more. Okay, time's getting on, so I need to just kind of allude to this TypeScript toolchain that I talked about at the very beginning. It's kind of also a JavaScript toolchain, I guess. I think maybe perhaps development toolchain would have been a better phrase for it. Suffice to say, it's already built in. We didn't have to do anything extra. We didn't have to add any configuration. We run it just by simply the same way that we would run JavaScript file. We run a TypeScript file. We don't have to compile anything or do any extra work or configuration to make that work. Now, there are facilities to do more things related to TypeScript, such as do our type checking with Deno check, or generate type definitions with Deno types. These are all built in as well and ready for you to use, as are things like formatting, for formatting the code, similar to how you might install something like Prettier to format your code and make those consistent across the project, or create a set of rules for linting your code with Deno lint. All of these are built in and kind of configurable and extensible. Okay, I've rattled through a lot, and I'm just going to summarize why I'm excited. I love tools that simplify and unify the tools. There are a lot of things that I've reached for other tools here that are now baked all into the one tool, which helps teams coalesce around a bit of consensus around the kind of tools that they're going to use, and you don't have to learn quite so many things. Deno is kind of regularly improving and building quite rapidly, as similar to many of the things within this kind of landscape. And I'm excited by the fact that I kind of know this already because of its basis on web standards. I think all of these things help have like a lower friction and kind of fewer quirks so that you can get building things very, very quickly, and you kind of build on Deno's quite robust security model and its impressive performance, which sounds like a very salesy way to wrap up a talk. I would urge you to play with Deno if you're at all interested by taking a look at some of these resources. I showed very quickly a list of examples and tutorials. You can dig into those there. Also, there's lots of help available in the Deno Discord and conversation and updates happening on Blue Sky. And I'd also recommend this video from the folks at Syntax, who did a very deep dive, warts and all, look at Deno, using it in for a particular project, and really dig into that quite a lot there as well. Okay, a few minutes over time, so apologies for that. Let's see if we can tighten this up in the edit. Let's see. But with that, I would just say thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. You can contact me for questions on philhawksworth.dev, and you can get these slides from the QR code. Find that at Hello Deno. Thanks very much.
Hey, Phil, what a fantastic talk. I
Oh, thanks
always
very
love
much.
the dabbling with Deno talks, the Deno discovery talks. They're always great. It is a fun, shiny new toy. So thanks for sharing all of those
I'm glad you
incredible
think so
insights.
too. I was always worried that I'd be the only one thinking that or using the word dabbling. So you've already made me very happy.
Yes, that was a really great talk. Reminding everyone, questions at slido.com, code 1704, or you can scan this QR code. Grill Phil real hard with some tough questions. So make sure to get all your great questions in. So as the community brings on their questions, hang on, I have some. Okay, let's get started. We do have some
Oh,
from the community. So how do you see Deno contributing to the future of development of the JavaScript and TypeScript ecosystems? Good question.
oh, well, what a great question.
Yes,
Uh,
I agree.
and I mean, you could think of those as one thing, or you could think of those as two things, really, right? I mean, I'll be very honest. As somebody who has been building for the web for a very long time and been building with JavaScript, I always considered myself to be a JavaScript developer. I guess I've been really nervous about starting to get into TypeScript because I found it a bit of a steep on ramp. And so, there's a contribution that Dino's made there straight away, just in terms of making things a bit more approachable. So, in terms of helping to kind of develop the TypeScript ecosystem, I think it's really helpful in terms of just bringing more people into that ecosystem, first of all. And I don't know if that's necessarily exactly what the question's about, but I think that really is at the heart of actually being able to make TypeScript more available to more people and make TypeScript tooling more available to more people, and then also making TypeScript projects, the outcome of those things more available. So there's that aspect, but also, Dino is really trying to. It sounds really flippant, but also kind of almost kind of bring JavaScript into the present, because JavaScript has a long history, and for a long time we've been building JavaScript with the new technologies and some of the old technologies. We had ESM come along, but then we've also had CommonJS, and so having tools that are built on those older kind of conventions is that there's some baggage that comes along with that, and Dino's really been trying to modernize that and kind of be ESM first and kind of get all of the benefits from that. So there's aspects like that which I think are just kind of modernizing the tooling and modernizing the way that the products are built as a result. But also there's things that I didn't really have time to talk about in that 20 minutes goes by in a blink. I found, but there are other aspects of the ecosystem that Dino's trying to really contribute to, and that is around, for an example, around package management. I kind of talked about the package management tooling that's within Dino, but there's also the opportunity to try and modernize things like package registries and what have you. And there's a project called JSR.io, which I mentioned very, very briefly, but not really in any depth. But if you take a look at JSR.io, it's almost it's a modern JavaScript registry. It's kind of a sister to NPM, if you like, but it's approached a little bit differently. And it's something that Dino's trying to get rolling because we think there's a better way of building out packages, distributing them, and kind of making those benefit from the modern capabilities of TypeScript. So that's something that we're trying to contribute back to the community, and that's something that we got started on our own, but now have opened up to a board of people across the industry to help govern that. We want that to be much bigger than Deno. So there's a variety of ways that we're helping to. We want to kind of contribute to the future of TypeScript and JavaScript. We believe very strongly that there is a valuable ecosystems and a bit of modernization and kind of helping us move past some of the conventions and baggage of the past will really be valuable for the industry as whole at large, really.
Fantastic. We have quite a few questions, so we'll have to move a little bit more quickly
Okay, I'll
on the
be
next
more
one.
succinct.
And I'll say that the difference between a good answer and a great answer is that you actually segue into the next question, which is really right on right on package management. So in your experience, how does Deno's package management system compare to that of Node.js? You touched on that a little bit. If you want to just like expand on it a tiny bit.
Yeah, very, very briefly. I mean, it's ultimately you can think of it almost like an extension of it because yes, it stands alone and you can manage packages directly through Deno. To start with, that wasn't able to talk to NPM. So now you can use npm packages as well, so it doesn't need to feel that different. But the main comparison I'd probably make is about its efficiency. When you install packages in your project, it caches them locally, so they go much, much faster. So they're kind of reused over projects. You don't have that giant set of node modules across all of your repos. So it's very, very efficient. It feels very, very snappy, very similar to PNPM that you may have come across. But one of the things I think is particularly nice is that it's integrated. It's there. You don't have to choose a different tool for that. So those are some of the main differences, and I think that's it just feels so much faster and it feels much more intuitive. And if you do, just segueing backwards to the JSR comment I made earlier on, if you start exploring that for the experience of publishing packages, that kind of is quite delightful. And the process of maintaining packages through that repository is really something we're quite excited about. So I'd recommend playing with that. That's something rather nice.
That sounds cool. Sounds fun. So great. You got some feedback. Great talk. What are some best practices you've discovered for writing serverless functions in Deno?
That could be quite a big question. To be honest, as I mentioned in the talk, when I started writing serverless functions with Deno, I didn't even realize I was using Deno. I was using Netlify functions, and so it's kind of reasonably well abstracted away. And so I don't think really I would say there are too many best practices just for serverless functions with Deno that make it different to Node.js. I would think the best practices for serverless functions, regardless of the runtime, are best practices for the serverless functions. So it's more about the architecture of using functions as a service, using serverless functions that way. So keeping things very insular, keeping them very well compartmentalized, not having lots of daisy chaining of one serverless function onto another and what have you. All of the kind of fundamentals that exist that you already know about for serverless functions and approaching those things, apply those also to writing serverless functions with Deno. It's the same architectural model, just some of the tools and some of the capabilities are a tiny bit different.
Okay, one last question,
Okay.
and we'll have to keep it short. We're almost out of time, but how can I convince my boss that using Deno will result in better business user outcomes? It's a great question.
What a difficult one to do in a
I know,
short
right?
amount of time.
Right.
It's difficult because it's a much newer technology, right? But it's built on the experience of building out Node and that Node ecosystem. So if there's one thing I would call out there, I'll call out two. I can't do one. The two things that I'd call out, it's that there are so many tools that are things that you would bolt on to another project, different types of tools, that now you can just say, I'll use the tools that are baked into the Deno itself here. So current developers and future developers won't have to make decisions about the tools that you'd use around the system. And the other one is perhaps the security model. The fact that you can be much more explicit about what you let your code do, rather than just running a node project that installs npm packages that do you don't know what and have access to the file system and the network and everything. You can rein that in and by default have the doors much more tightly shut and then see what those dependencies are asking for and then enable those bit by bit. So it gives you much greater visibility over what your code and what the inherited code can do. And I think that's fabulous for business users and people who care about SLAs and compliance and those kind of things.
Yes, absolutely. Security always sells. That's a really good
Right,
selling point.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
you hit it right on the head. Thank you so much, Phil, for being with us. What a fantastic talk, and what a really pleasure to have you here
Thanks so much.
and being a part of the Node ecosystem. Thanks so much. Have
Brilliant.
a
My
really
pleasure.
great
Thanks ever so
Thanks.
much.